Good afternoon, folks, and welcome back to the bench in Kelvingrove Park. I'll introduce my guest here.
Hi, I'm Fiona Dyer. I'm Director of the Children and Young People Centre for Justice.
And thank you so much for agreeing today to come and have
Not
a
at
chat
all.
with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Not at all, not at all, not at all. And 3 songs.
Yes.
Three
3 songs. So when you asked me about my, songs from my childhood, I have been going on quite a emotional roller coaster journey and thinking about songs from my past, and I think maybe what I was like as a child and to where I am now. I don't know if it was meant to be as in depth as that, but then my songs are quite maybe superficial. I'm not sure. And what I was like. So I was. I've been thinking back, and like we were just chatting there, my dad was a big, really into his music, but we weren't allowed to touch his music.
Right, well,
We weren't allowed, and neither was my mum. He was really into all these records and things, but so it was really what my mum got to listen to when I started growing up and what she liked. So there was quite a lot of like Nina Simone in our house, and I love Nina Simone. I've actually said I'd like that played at my funeral. Is that quite depressing? But
No.
because I think it brings it from the start to the end.
Totally.
And I love that like a new dawn, a new day, and I just really love that song, and I'd still have it now on my phone. And when it comes, when you're on repeat and when that comes on, I'm like, oh, and it does bring back memories. So that's probably my younger days in the house. And then for me going on into my more like 10, 11 year old, a lot of my memories with music are about like making up dances.
All right.
And like you had an area, a museum near my house, and me and my sister and my friends who lived close by would go up and do different dance routines.
Well, did you brush it any chance?
We did. Do you know, we did in my bedroom. It was like a tiny wee box room, like really tiny. And I remember it was all Band-Aid.
Oh,
I remember I had a cabin bed that literally you opened the door and banged the bed, but you had the stairs going up to it, and I remember putting a microphone around my wee Love Heart light shade and stand, like the band with the microphones that were hanging down. But that's a different one, and jumping about and pretending to sing and recording the top 40 on your cassette. Did you ever do that?
Didn't want the vocals in it though, and they did that on purpose.
The DJ, you're trying to cut them out, that's right. But anyway, dancing up. So one of my songs that we used to dance to quite a lot was Sister Sledge, Frankie.
Yeah.
Now listen to the lyrics now, they're probably not that appropriate because she was 10 and fell in love with a 16-year-old, which, but at the time it was all, we were just jumping about, singing and dancing up at the museum. It was those days when you just got told to come back when you were hungry, not now.
No, and I talk about that all the time. You used to go out and play, and you wouldn't come home until you were hungry or until you were looked for.
Exactly, because you might get fed at somebody else's house.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It was always good. And that takes us into because you just says there about acting out, playing, right? And that's one of the very important things for children, is that opportunity to play, to be safe and to play, whether it's to music or to play with your pals.
Definitely, and you escape with music, don't you?
It is, yeah.
You really do, and I think for me as well, that goes on, I think, to more secondary school when I was still doing my dance routines, to the playing before boys came on the scene, before, sort of 12, 13. Exactly. I remember doing a dance, me and my friends were dancing and we were at school disco and everyone got made to stop and watch us, probably hated us, to Berlinda Carlisle, I think. And we were doing our wee dance routines and thinking, that we were the bee's knees, but it was an innocence and it was a fun, and that's what us as girls used to do. We'd meet up the town, we'd go and practice.
They your routine now with TikTok and all these other platforms now that are there. I think to myself, what would I have been like with that?
I'm so glad I didn't grow up with social media. I'm so glad that pressure that's on kids now.
Yep.
I'm so glad we didn't have that, and we could be innocent and you could make mistakes.
Exactly.
And it wasn't for everybody to see.
And when you do make a mistake or when content is put on the internet, it's there for keeps.
Yeah.
And quite a lot of children that we listen to, it's a fear all the time of the peers filming them or make a mistake and it's laughed at.
Yep.
You know, so the internet itself, and that's one of the things that when the UNCRC was being drafted, the drafting process, it was in the 80s when it was East and West.
Yep.
You know, the Berlin Wall was still up, and internet then was just
wasn't really a thing.
A thing. You know, and when I look at the UNCRC itself, I look at the limitations and the strengths within it, right? And automatically see that there's no protection online, you know, but kids have got the right to access information and the thought process as well. So where it's protecting on one right, it's limitation on internet. It's clear to see.
Yeah, definitely. I think it's that sort of almost that unattended, isn't it? One way you're giving them access to more information. Now children know their rights. Well, some children, a lot of children, it's starting getting in schools. You know, my kids, you know, primary school still, and they'll tell me that they've got rights. And they've got a right not to go to bed when I say it, they've got a right to play, and and it's great that they're being taught that, but and getting access to information, but then there is the downside of that, and there is the downside of just things, as you're saying, just being on the internet forever, damaging mistakes kids make, having to live with that forever.
And that's that, is it?
And we all make mistakes.
It's normal. We have to make mistakes to learn.
Development. Children are allowed to make mistakes. You know, as adults, it's maybe not as accepted.
It's more consequential.
For children, you're allowed to. That's when you're meant to make mistakes.
Exactly, and you should be allowed to make mistakes.
And not have it reminded forever or held over you forever.
Punished.
Exactly.
For making a mistake.
Exactly.
You know, and I think that's very important. And also, the UNCRC, the wording, the context, right? For myself, reading, there's lots of loopholes, back doors, right? Little back doors. Now, for example, I was reading the implementation of the UNCRC and reasonable resources, you know, available resources, this wording.
Yeah,
you know,
and that goes back to, for children, it's the GURFEC, the getting it right for every child, but there's still rights breaches, because when children cause the most harm, it's like you've got rights until you do something. Yeah, until you do something. And obviously things will change with the Children's Care and Justice Act, that children will be removed from Parliament.
Brilliant, amazing. Had to happen.
I mean, how amazing is that? That's just...
The CYCJ contributed big time to that.
Thank you. We're so proud that, and the staff team are just been campaigning, I think, and just pushing for it for so long. But these are, you know, because they are children, and we need to acknowledge them, and they need to be able to make mistakes and have their needs and rights upheld and, you know, addressed in a more child-friendly environment. It's going to be more effective for them and for recidivism in the long run to not be sitting in Parliament. So that is brilliant. They'll be getting moved, hopefully, you know, in the next few weeks, not too long, I believe, but getting moved soon. And that's just brilliant. And there's still more areas, though, where we need to improve. We need to get children out of police custody. So sitting in police cells, children tell us that's just horrendous.
Torture.
Just that the length of time, not knowing what's happening. Even court cells, a lot. Even today, before I came here, I had a call and just saying, you know, why are kids held to the end of the day to be seen? And I'm like, why are they held? They should be seen first. And then they're not getting seen to some. That was saying a 14-year-old was there at 7:30 at night. That was just yesterday. And I'm like, right, so...
14?
Sitting in court cells, and you've been in police custody overnight.
Wow.
So you're like, there's still areas, and I think when we'll take a rights lens, it shows us rights breaches, it shows us what we're not doing right as well as what we are doing right. And there's still areas for improvement in Scotland. We're getting there. We're getting there.
We're getting there, and Scotland itself have made massive changes since the Kelvingrove report was commissioned, right? But it was highlighted then about the welfare needs. You know, and the children's hearing system looks at that, addresses that, which is fabulous, and they're getting more powers and more responsibility.
And there'll be all children up to age 18 to recognise children as children.
And that's another limitation for myself looking at the UNCRC, because children develop differently. And I know young adults.
Yeah, they're having that 18 cut off.
Aye.
Yeah.
You know,
Yep.
I think that itself is
Yeah.
a limitation.
So, yeah, and I think you're right. And I think we know from research with like the brain development, it's
Yeah,
mid-20s,
aye,
isn't it?
totally.
25, and your sentencing guidelines for young people's 25 now. And we've been pushing policy and government, the whole system approach to 21. And it should be on an individual developmental basis. Of course it should.
Aye.
Of course it should.
And-
It's an artificial line, isn't it?
You can't have that line.
Oh.
You know, and for myself, when I look at the whole system approach, for me the key word is how you approach it.
Yep.
And that is the same when you touched on police custody. And with my research, there seems to be police are more informed on victims' trauma rather than looking at the other individual to see what traumatic experiences they've gone through.
Yep.
And I know data, information that's out there, I look at it sometimes, I think to myself, is that a true picture of what lens are you looking through? And I look at the ACEs model, right, and I think to myself, it's weak. You know, it's not broad enough, because a lot of people can look at it and say, oh, I can identify 2 or 3 within there. And should we look at adverse justice experiences and ages model,
Yep.
where when we're looking at what needs somebody, we look at that model, which is a preventative model, which could help. Let's see what social injustices, welfare injustices that are happening there. Let's address that, and maybe that would be something to look at.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the ACEs model's really limited in other ways. We've done a lot of research on bereavement and loss, you know, and that's missing from that, you know, like from speaking to the kids in custody and from other young people involved in offending. They've had so many traumatic bereavements and losses, murders in front of them, suicides, you know, just really quite traumatic that that needs, you know, and how that's impacted on them. But yeah, you're right, people who are involved in offending, especially children, their backgrounds characterised, you know, what's happened to them, their trauma, their experiences. And you're right, it doesn't always get taken into account.
It doesn't.
And how it's impacting them and their behaviour.
What is underlying challenges that person's facing with neurodisability, right? And neurodiversity. And another really, really good international instrument is a covenant for disabled people.
Right,
And if you look at some of the articles within that covenant, protects children also. And that allows state parties or local authority to make a decision on equity of needs. There's no discrimination against others.
Yep.
But they don't recognise that. And even for screening for children, it would give the powers to be a better understanding. Is there an underlying issue there that's affecting the behaviour that's been criminalised?
Yep. And I think, again, a lot of the research is like speech, language, communication need underlying different areas of need that are maybe diagnosed or not diagnosed yet. It can be up to about 80%.
Totally.
Research are saying for especially for children and young people in conflict with law. And that's all leading to their education experiences or, you know, lack of in a lot of these situations. And how they're sort of processing and what they're hearing and processing the world around them and how it impacts them.
Definitely. And when we're talking about like education is one of the key places where children will get to know and understand their rights. But if you're not going to school, or you've not got that attachment, how then do you get, because quite a lot of people ask and say, the children that haven't been reached, no, they're hard to reach, they haven't been reached.
Yes, and we need to start saying that and turning that right.
It's the language, look, it's not that hard to reach and they've not been reached yet.
Yeah, exactly.
And how do we get the message across to them?
So they know. Yep, definitely. And it is, and that's your right. It's about empowering them, giving them the knowledge of their rights to use their rights.
Totally.
Definitely. And I think a lot of work probably still needs to be done. We've got policies about school inclusion.
Yep.
But we still hear of children who are not in school. We hear not full-time timetables, children who are choosing maybe not to be there. So it's how do we reach those children as well and make sure that they're aware of their rights and can know how to access them and uphold them.
And they're confident enough
challenge when they're not having them upheld.
And participation then. You know, and for street cones, we do a lot of learning by doing drama. And we role play different scenarios, so we empower and build up that confidence. And we've seen some of the children after finishing the sessions, they're more confident. You know, so the creative arts plays a huge part in CRC.
And the whole participation in getting children's voice heard. So it's about engaging them through that area of participation, but it's also if they don't want to, or if they're not able to join some of the more strategic meetings or that, it's about making sure their voice is still heard and translating it and making sure we're listening to the kids so we can tell others who are making decisions this is what they're saying. So if they're not able to, it's giving them the confidence to do it, but if they're not, somebody else do it for them.
And that's important, the advocacy.
Definitely.
You know, and having an advocacy right space there to support and form children and parents as well, because when I remember growing up, and for example, when the social worker was coming to see me, my dad would go, "Oh, here he comes, right?" You know, do you think services have to be more human? You know, they've got obviously barriers and boundaries, right?
Yes. And I think there is a perception, isn't there? There really is. And everyone's got a perception, you know, and as a social worker, when I used to go out to houses and how I was perceived and by families and especially by parents, because you're coming in and sometimes they want you, sometimes they need you, sometimes they need the help, and it's trying to encourage them, as you're saying, give them the skills and the confidence that they don't need you, but other times they don't want you there.
No, they don't.
It's their child that's, you know, maybe been involved in offending and suddenly a social worker's there and they don't want you in the house.
No, they like keep a distance.
And you're trying to break those barriers, build a relationship to support the child, because it needs to be everybody around the child.
It's got to be, and the family's so key to it. And we delivered a project with Youth Intensive Services, and there was some social workers who were involved in the project, and it was them and us, right? Until the social workers started to talk about them, right? And they're a parent and they've got kids, right? And they broke down so many barriers, right? And the kids actually go, all right, brilliant, you know, and you could see the relationship forming. And trust came in and mutual respect.
Yeah, definitely.
And that was because the person explained about them.
About themselves. And everyone's got a background, experiences that shape them. And people want to go into professions, sometimes because of their own experience, sometimes they want to help, but sometimes it's because they've been helped and they want to, you know, there's lots of different reasons. And I think you're trained, though, I have to say my social work training, it was quite a long time ago now, but it was about not sharing much of yourself.
You're not allowed to.
Your training was saying, you know, it's about your boundaries and it's not about, you know, you and don't give anything away. And I think we've changed from that. I used to work in like residential houses with children as well. And it was all, don't give in. It's like, but this is their house and you're in their house and you're not to give much away about yourself. And it just felt really, for me, who gives probably, you know, chats away and would probably give too much away, it just felt really unnatural not to talk about your family or your friend or, you know, your kids or whatever.
And if you get the opportunity to turn around and say, like, I remember growing up, that happened. And these are then you would basically believe in what the person's saying then. Because you're creating that empathy, that connection.
And that works a lot with mentors, doesn't it? And a lot of people who have been through similar experience get more respect a lot of the time because they've been there and done it.
And that is a respect that comes in. And even when we're sitting now in Kelvingrove Park, over the last few years, there's been a lot of bad publicity about antisocial behaviour of kids coming into the park. And if we look at the park as a common good asset for everybody, and when these parks were created, it was for a time of health and well-being where you could come and connect. And I look at the Kelvingrove Park for when I first came here as a kid to where it is now, right? And surely the park has to evolve as well. And we've got, is there a opportunity to create safe spaces? Would it not be simple to create a safe space where there's screens? So, okay, you've not got the funds to go at the bandstand, but there's a space there we can watch it. And you can keep...
How simple.
I know. Just a wee simple tweak.
Well, I was actually here last night with my kids in the skate park.
Brilliant.
You know, it was so fun. My daughter was at gymnastics. I brought my son with his scooter, and then she came over after. And because as you're saying, it's for all ages, but even the skate park, you've got adults there on skateboards, which I'm not going to make a judgment about that. You've got BMXers. You've got young adults on skateboards. You've got the guys smoking the joints, having the cans. You've got my 7 and 10-year-old scooting around. Exactly. You've got all the kids, and it's all mixed in together. But there needs to be more. I'm chair of the antisocial behaviour group, the independent group. So we're working to try and address antisocial behaviour, to look at recommendations to the government by the end of this year. And we're getting so much information that it's children, young people. And they are obviously, a lot of children and young people are more visual and are causing a lot of the antisocial behaviour that can be seen. But it's obviously a concern for a lot of people. So we need to look at that. But it is more than children. But half of it's like, but no wonder. We've taken away all community or all forms of community. Yeah. We've taken away, where do kids hang out now? Where do they hang out? Where are they allowed? Kids naturally hang out together. Yeah. They want somewhere, and we need to maybe create more safe spaces. Yeah, and it's about the places that kids are going to. And what happened? Youth work, Friday and Saturday night. Aye. Midnight football, all these things, there seem to be less and less happening for kids. But you're right, that would be a simple,
easy.
I remember sitting in this park having a carry out when I was like 18 at uni. A Saturday night we'd meet or a weeknight.
And there's so many people coming with a carry out. And more so...
This night, why not?
Why not? And you've not got a garden, you stay in a tenement, so this is your garden. And even when you walk about the park, you do smell some aromas that people are smoking, so that's their thing. And, so maybe there should be safe spaces within the park for adults and for children as well, where they can go and be themselves.
Yeah, it's the teenage years, isn't it, as well? It's that sort of 14 to 17, you're not going out to pubs. No. Where are you? Yeah. You want to be with your friends. There's a group of you. Nobody wants to be near a group of kids because it's quite intimidating. So it's like, and they just want Wi-Fi access now or somewhere. The park's fine when it's dry, and when it's wet, where do they go?
And youth centres with youth clubs, and I remember when I used to go to the youth club in my local area, and they broke down the divide with gangs as well, and you're able to go and speak to the youth worker, and he was independent. He wasn't the police, wasn't the social work, wasn't the school. It was somebody you could go to and ask for advice, or somebody that would say, "Are you okay?" And maybe that's an opportunity for participation and empowering these youth clubs on rights. It has to be looked at. Yeah,
definitely. We do. We need to look at just if children's right to access like everybody else, but it's getting the balance in it, because everyone needs to feel safe.
Totally.
Where they are. So, and if people don't, it's then making safe spaces.
Yeah.
And that's,
it's a simple solution.
Yeah, and we need to look at getting that feel of communities again, because a lot of communities have lost so many resources, things have closed down, there's your youth centres, other sort of resources within local communities, so they don't feel like communities anymore. There's not the same feeling, I think, if you go into areas. People are saying that they don't have that cohesion anymore.
No, and in the winter time, when the leaves fall off the trees, you can see Glasgow Uni, right? Yeah. And for myself, I always used to look at it and go, that's not for me. Because of my education, I was at school. And then the more I look at it, the more it inspires, though, And I think to myself, for children to get the opportunity to go to uni, and they ask you now what life experience you've got.
Oh, do they? Oh, brilliant! I didn't know that.
They ask you, there's 3 questions now. What education you've got that contributes to the course? What life experience you've got that contributes to access the course? And why do you want to do it? So they're simplifying it, and that's great, because it means children then will have a better access to higher education.
Oh, definitely, and it should be for everyone.
It should be open to everybody, but more so as if you're learning by doing, if you look at education itself, and for myself, I ended up in care. And the reason that was, looking back now, was my behaviour and my personality didn't fit mainstream education. At that time, it was a special class, they called it. And I sat in there with a couple other pupils and we didn't feel special. No, we didn't feel special, you know. And I thought to myself, you know what? I'm not doing this. So I learned quite a lot.
It's just awful to look back the special class. How horrendous is that?
Class it was called the special class.
How awful must you have felt? That is just horrendous.
I didn't feel special.
It was special needs, it was called, wasn't it?
It was called the special class.
That's awful.
I remember coming in one
Special class.
May morning and the teacher turned and says to me, "Oh, you're in the special class today." And I went, "Special class?" "Aye, it's for you, it's for kids like you, you know." So automatically.
And I think I used to just, when you reflect on it and you speak to kids and they're using language they shouldn't be using.
Yeah.
Because it's social work language, you know, or it's like, it's just...
Shouldn't be involved in that, shouldn't be in their world.
Exactly, but so we need to change it. I know there's work by Our Hearing's Our Voice and a group of young people, and they're saying what language they don't want to hear anymore, what words they don't want to hear, and it's great.
Yeah.
And we need to listen to that and not use those words when we're in reports about them.
Exactly, report, you know.
It's like, you know, and you're like difficult child or disruptive child, but we need to think about that, and we need to be reframing things and not the negative language that we use, especially a lot when you're reading back like social work reports, or if you're saying in education, hearing that language that...
It's got to change.
Yeah.
And also on, for example, child-friendly justice, right? For me, it's punitive, and there's
the term child-friendly justice.
No, the justice system.
Oh right, yes.
It's punitive.
Yes.
And I don't think the system that's in place now can ever be child-friendly.
Well, it's not, because it's designed for adults.
It's designed for adults.
Oh, it's not designed for children.
And it's there to punish, right, rather than rehabilitate.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Or even identify needs and help build that person.
We should be keeping whoever we can out of justice systems. We definitely shouldn't have children in them because they aren't designed to meet their needs. We've been advocating a lot about youth courts and really trying to have no children in court, but if we do 18 to 26 in line with the sentencing guidelines, that it should be a youth court, that it shouldn't be the formalised court that we have. Nobody understands what's happening. I used to work in Glasgow Sheriff Court and I couldn't understand what was happening half the time.
And that's going to take me on.
How do children understand?
Totally. And we have invited the law faculty to come and sit on the bench and listen to it, because when a kid, for example, has been held in police custody, may have, say, a mental illness or another challenge, and then they're going to arrive in the court and they're going to meet a lawyer who talks and dressed in a way that isn't child-friendly.
Yeah, definitely.
And is that lawyer going to look at the welfare and social needs, why that person's in front of them? Or they want to just process the person through the court system that they don't understand and get through the day? So I think, the police have got responsibility, but also the legal. Lawyers,
definitely.
They've got a role to play in this.
Yeah, definitely. Clan Child Law worked with our group of young people, Youth Justice. You know, we have a group of young people with staff, and they've done a brilliant animation. And it's about that, you know, about just seeing a suit and even going to a panel, and it's Mrs. sort of like busybody, it's this and that. And it's like, speak to me, find out about me.
Here I am, here I am.
And that's the voice of children and young people. It's really powerful.
It is. And I remember we did a play, and it was for the Champions Board. And the children, they came up with the script themselves, the content. And what happened was, one of the kids came on the stage and they were gagged and tied, right? And that's the way they felt at the panel. And I remember we done a Q&A afterwards, and somebody turned around and says, "Oh, that isn't how it's done. That's not how it's done." And the young person says, "That's how I feel. That's how I feel." You know, and I thought it was
you can't take that away. It's their own experience.
Powerful, so powerful. And I think definitely there's going to be a discussion around that. And obviously, I got a scholarship, right? Children in conflict with the law.
How's it going?
Amazing.
Your postgrad.
Amazing. And, you know, it's changed my life.
Really?
Yeah. And I say it's changed my life as it's gave me a lot of understanding of things that at that time, I didn't understand. You know, and when I look through the research is there, it gives me a wee bit of, oh, right, that's why. Oh, that's what they should have done, right? And I can't look back in that angry way, right, because it's too sore. I think you've got to look ahead and forward to see what changes can happen.
You can make now. Yeah, definitely.
What difference can be made now. And I was always looking for an apology, you know that? I was always looking for somebody to turn around and say, I'm sorry for what happened. And for me, the door closing was having the opportunity to learn at South Clyde, to advocate now. That's what it should be happening. That's what should happen.
Yep.
So for me,
I'm glad you're enjoying the course.
Amazing, and very supportive, because my referencing, right, AP 7 referencing, right, that to myself has been challenging, right, because
I hate referencing. I've just been doing that today.
I hate it. And I'm reading something, right, and I'll go, well, I get a bit of that, right, but my experience tells me something different. And how to reference your lived experiences against an academic, you get that balance there.
Yeah, but that is the difference, though. Your lived experience is your experience, and the value placed on that, you can't minimise that.
But
when somebody write and just...
How do you reference it? How would you advise?
Or advise to reference that?
Reference lived experience, because I asked Fergus the same question, all right? And
what did Fergus say?
He says there's a terminology that you can use in your conclusion.
Oh, see, he's very clever, Fergus.
Oh, he's back on me. I know you.
No, I'm just saying my opinion.
Well, what I was going to...
In my personal experience, I have found this.
Yeah, I've experienced this, I've noticed this, but also my profession.
Let's criticise each other. You know, academics can say, you know, such and such found this. However, in this study, we found this. Just saying that.
And there's that balance here. And even you look at the assistance models, right? And Fergus, Neil, right?
Totally.
But they were made for adults. That's adults kind of thinking. And I look at other models that are there, frameworks for the children's justice, but it's all for adults, and it's been adapted and take wee bits.
Aye, totally. The systems are.
There's no the data, the information is weak, I think.
Yeah, the Edinburgh study of youth transitions in crime. That's obviously our main big Scottish study that have given sort of recommendations that what is most effective for children and young people. But we've still got adults, you know, you're right, we've still got the adult systems though.
Yeah.
So we would argue, we know prison doesn't work. It's actually, and especially for children and young people, there's a more, actually being involved with them and bringing them into justice systems is actually worse than if we didn't do anything, which is just awful. You know, so we need to divert, we need to keep children out of formal systems wherever we can. Early intervention, diversion from prosecution, children's hearing system over court, you know, alternatives over secure, secure over YY. Everything should be trying to keep children out of these formal adult-based systems especially, but out of formal systems, and help them in local communities and support them. And acknowledge that they're children, developmental, what they're going through, what's happened to them. It all needs, you have to see the whole picture of the child, not just what they've done, where they've come from, where they're part of. That all needs to be seen.
And it makes so much sense. And even like, because I look at the diversions and early intervention, right, but you're still in the system.
Yep,
You're still in a system. And surely the diversion should be welfare. You know, and treatment, help. You know, rather than quite a lot of my experience of seeing diversions as groups of young people come together under one roof. It allows them to network, allows them to socialise. That's a peer group. You know, so are we protecting them? Like, is that the best interest? Is that for the best interest of the child?
Making new friends.
Making new friends.
Learning new skills.
Totally. And I always look at the main principles, you know, and it's welfare, you know, and the best interest of the child.
You build a relationship with them. Find out what's happening for them. Who are they? Who are they?
Who are you?
What's going to work with them?
Exactly.
What's going to stop you doing that?
And what do you need?
What do you need to help you move on?
And what does your mammy, daddy, or carer, auntie, uncle, granny,
Totally.
what do they need?
Definitely.
I get that.
And then get out.
Aye,
Help them and then leave.
get them out the city. And
If they don't need us, let's leave them.
aye, yeah. And then for children who do really serious things, right? Yeah, there's got to be consequences, but surely it has to be looked at. How do we make sure that young person, they're supported when they come out the other end?
Yeah, to go back into a community and into
They're
society.
prepared and ready and able to do that.
Yeah. And what's happened and work with them and addressing all their underlying needs will be more effective and them not being involved in any future offending.
Aye, yeah, definitely.
So there's that assistance, but it's about them as their whole them.
I'd have a look at why people stop doing something.
Yep.
Right? What's going to make that person stop having that behaviour?
Yep.
Right? And I think that person being listened to first is key.
Yeah.
And it's got meaning. It's not just lip service, right? Okay, then we'll go. Okay. Right. So it's got to have some weight behind it, and it's got to have, it's got to inform the people who make the decisions.
Yeah.
And the good thing about the UNCRC is all the rights in, they're all linked. It's spider's web to me. Or the way I look at it is a socket set, right? You've got to fix the car, you don't just rack up the spanner. You've got all your tools with you.
Exactly.
And that's what it. So if you're going to make a decision, you've got to consider all the other articles within that.
Yeah. So it's about a full assessment of an individual.
Totally. And
that they're part of that. And that their family's part of that.
And they're involved.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way it's going to work, is if they're involved and they're able to participate.
And have their voice heard.
Voice heard. Policy, leadership and change is now it's the UNCRC is legislation. It's all implementation now, right? How it's got to be implemented. And my experience, local authorities, public services are saying we've not got a framework. Well, that's not in their policy. Because before, I believe the cart pulled the donkey, right? But where rights, it should be the donkey pulling the cart because your policy should be created around the rights that are there. Does that make?
Yeah, but we've been endorsed the UNCRC for over 20 years or whatever. We should be doing it. This is not new. We shouldn't need to put it in legislation for it to happen, but obviously it's brilliant, that it is, because now it can be legally challenged if rights aren't But this isn't new.
No.
People should be, and services should be doing this already.
Exactly. And for myself, when I first started my degree at Strathclyde, and I looked at, one of the questions was, look at other international instruments, right? And I'm reading through it and I'm thinking to myself, when I went through the youth justice system in the 80s, I had protections in. You know, with the European Court, I had protections, and it never happened, And like you say there, the UNCRC has been there for a while, right?
91 we ratified it, did we not?
There we go, 91, right? So why has it had to take legislation? So this is one interesting thing that, and I says it to somebody in the services, I'm not going to mention because it's not what, and I says to the person, I says, you're breaking the law now. And I went, what? I says, you're breaking the law.
So not upholding your right?
Well, no, it's legislation. I says, how does it feel now that you're in the system? And the person didn't like that.
Well, I know it shouldn't be a surprise. It should be what should be happening anyway.
Definitely.
So we need to make sure. But I think this is now. There'll be test cases. I'm sure there'll be challenges. And that'll set examples going forward.
And on the reasonable resources or available resources and a few other backdoor loopholes, do you think there's legislation that fill the gaps?
And what resources we need? I mean that.
And I'm up doing. I get two words. They always stick out to me. As progressive realisation, right?
Yeah.
And available resources.
Yeah. We're, as you said earlier, we're in a bit of a financial crisis at the moment, and there isn't the resources and there isn't money for all these additional resources. I think local authorities and other partners have got a real difficult time about prioritising. I think that's what it's going to come down to. What the money they've got and how they use it.
How they better spend it.
Yeah.
And
Because there's no new money,
no
new resources.
So you've got to use what you've got there already.
Yeah, you either realign, you change how you spend it, you're more effective with how you spend it, or you have to prioritise, and then something always has to go, doesn't it?
And that's leadership. That's the people who lead organisations, and they've got to, that culture's got to filter down, for change. And some people don't want to change.
Change is hard, isn't it?
Well, for me to change my life, it's hard, but I managed to do it.
Yep.
So it's possible.
Yeah, of course.
And you've got to have that belief and hope that it's going to be possible. And moving forward after COVID, post-COVID, and I think we're starting to see starting to trickle in a wee bit now. We're seeing how children are behaving, and how that the damage we don't have that social interaction at school, playing with their pals, and kids' mental health.
Yeah.
So do you see a lot of consequences of COVID moving forward?
Look, definitely, and I don't think we realised it obviously at the time, did we? And we're at CYCJ probably hearing a lot more. We're speaking to local authorities. I know even from own kids' friends, it's just there's a lot of kids struggling, really struggling just now, and it is going back into just a normal way after being being locked up and things, and the whole change and the fear. I think there's a lot of fear and a lot of anxiety. We were hearing about all these people dying, our family. Totally. Wash your hands, sanitise, wear a mask, go out for half an hour or an hour. It was just the most horrendous time. I feel I don't know if I've kind of blocked it in a way.
We'll try to put it behind the scene.
Just it feels bad. I went through that.
No, nuts.
But I think kids are really suffering. I think developmentally, just their wee brains trying to comprehend what happened and how they get through that, and missing important transitions, going to school, moving to secondary school, kids going to uni, just didn't get, all that experience, or going to work, had to do college, and it's all online, and you can't get a job, so they're sitting in the house, so there's all that.
All that.
But for young kids, especially, it just seems just a real struggle with coping.
And I don't know how many times I heard it on telly. We're following the science. We've got to follow the science, right? But we don't follow the science when we talk about the minimum age of criminal responsibility. And what the UN tells us is that scientists, the cortex, how the brain develops, right? Science tells us that.
Yeah.
So why we not follow this?
Because obviously we pick and choose in this society. Depends what fits our sort of what we want, isn't it?
Because the UNCRC doesn't have a minimum age of criminal responsibility. It sets the age of 18 below.
It says the minimum should be 14 is the it's the sort of average, or should be the minimum. Yes.
Look at Scandinavia, for example, 15, 14, we've moved forward, and previously we were 9. We were 9, then we went to 12, and I think if we follow the science, then we've got to look at the needs of the child, how their brain's developed, how the cortex.
Totally. Even 12.
Aye. I know, like I was 12,
You're just wee kids. Even 14, you're only talking like 12 and 13-year-olds.
Exactly. And
so as a minimum, of course we should be 14 as a very minimum.
14, I think we follow other countries' examples and see what they do well and see what works well,
Yeah, definitely. And I think we definitely need to look with all our systems for children and young people through this rights lens to make sure that children's rights are being upheld and that we are. And I think there's the CREA, the assessments for the children's rights assessment. So there's a tool there that organisations can use to assess, to see what they're doing and if it does uphold children's rights. And I think we'll find that a lot don't.
Yeah, they'll be surprised themselves because there is so many toolkits out there that should support the work that you're doing. Yeah. But policy and procedure, who's going to be responsible? Who's going to actually sit there, and rewrite these policies, but have children participate in the process?
Definitely. Well, we all need to campaign for that and push for that. Yeah.
And I believe the policies should be able to be accessible by all.
Yeah, definitely.
And children should be able to read it and it should
Yes.
be understandable.
Yes.
They must understand the policy.
Definitely, definitely. So we're trying that. I think there's some consultations that they're trying to have a more easy read version or a version for children and young people. But policy probably should be, you're right, drafted. What does this mean for children and young people so they understand it?
And they understand what should be happening, what access they should have.
Yeah, this is what your rights are, and if you don't have these rights upheld, this is what you can do.
Aye.
To challenge that, to complain.
And they understand it and see it, because even try to find policies.
Yeah.
You know,
We've got lots of policies.
We've got lots of policies that takes into. Is there too much? Because when I do my studies, right, and I'll start looking, researching, if I'm not going down these all different rabbit holes, right, I see something, I click on it, I'm doing a different. But for me, there's so much legislation there.
Oh.
And there's outdated stuff,
I knew
right?
you were going to say that, I know. And remember, so in Scotland, when we became devolved nation, we were able to create our own legislation, so we get a wee bit excited about that. We created quite a lot of legislation.
It's great.
But we want it to be Scottish, and that's why. So, but it means we've got a lot of legislation, and some replaces others.
Right.
But it's quite hard to know. It replaces, you know, it replaces part 1, section 2B of that, and you're like, oh.
And then you've got amendments.
You need a law degree to understand.
And for myself, looking at it, and I do understand it, right? But it takes me some time.
I'm the same.
To re-look, go back over it, go back over it, and go back over it again. And I think to myself, if I'm struggling to understand, say a child wants to look at law, if they want to read, or a parent wants to read, how do we make simplify it, and maybe legislation that's not relevant today should be away.
Take it out. No, definitely. I think you're right. We've tried to do that. We've got our Just the Right Space website, as you'll know, for children and young people with more accessible resources, and try to make things like we've got different diagrams or the resources you can click on. You know, if you've been arrested, click on it, what could happen, and give you different options. But it's only for the children that know it's there.
Aye, so
how do we get? I know, if you don't know, then you don't know.
Exactly, and that is, how do we get the message to all children?
And families. So if they are caught in that situation, where do families go? And I don't think we're very good at engaging with families. I think we need to try and be better. I'm saying for us, even at CYCJ, need to be better at engaging families and engaging parents and carers. And
but a lot of parents and carers are maybe with bad experiences with the services.
They don't want to engage.
No,
I know.
And they see it as a punishment.
Yeah.
Or they're coming to punish or look at me, or, you know, and so how do we break down that barrier, you know, generational one that was there?
Yeah. Yep.
I think that's going to be a hard one.
Yeah, so our plan is to employ parents to engage with other parents on our behalf. Do you think that'll work?
I think that'll work, aye, because what better connection, empathy, parents.
Yeah. Parents that have been through it, that have got children in conflict with law, or have had children in conflict with law. So it's not services, social workers engaging, it's other parents to get the views of parents.
Oh, and we need that. We need the views of the parents, but we also need to help parents understand their kid.
Yeah.
And maybe they've got underlying the challenges that haven't been flagged up.
Their own trauma, their own life.
Yeah,
exactly.
And they need that help.
Yep.
So how do we do that with resources that we've got?
Yeah.
You know, that's difficult.
Definitely. And it's about that early intervention, family support, families who need it, to skill parents.
Yeah.
To have, you know, to be able to manage their own children, and we all need a bit of help at time, books, it's different ways of getting help.
Yeah.
You know, my son's doing this, what does that mean? Yeah. You know, my daughter's got a rash, you know, you can't know everything, so it's just a different way of, my son's behaving in this way, what can I do?
Yeah, so you understand, because you're the best person to help.
But you're their mum, you're their, you know, carer, you can help them, but maybe you're just getting a bit of help as well.
Yeah.
Speak to other people who have been there. What's their advice?
Totally.
Yeah.
And don't be afraid to ask.
No, exactly. So we're hoping that we can do that.
Oh, it'll be brilliant, because I think having that people who have walked in that pathway and I see it when I go to visit somebody in the prison, I explain that I've been in there before. Automatically.
Change.
Aye, because you know, like, until somebody slams a door on you, you can't get out. You need to experience it. You know, it's a different world you're in. So I think for the street cones, we connect through empathy,
Yep.
you know, and we tell our stories, you know, and for example, I was reading Police Scotland and Glasgow City Council for antisocial behaviour in the park, and they were going to employ or bring in different organisations, different people, workers, youth workers and everything, and I don't see them in this park. I'm in the park all the time, right? And we do some outreach work sometimes, and we go and listen to the young team and talk to them. And Blair, for example, he'll bring his drone, so and it's really interesting hearing what they're saying, you know. And I'll say, well, anybody spoke to you in the park about that? Anybody? No.
No, I don't think I've ever seen any youth workers in the park.
But
There are quite a lot too. And Victoria Park.
All the parks, because every community had. I love the park. It's one of the places that you see life evolving. You know, well, it's trees, plants. You know, it's all there. I
know I've not seen youth workers, but I think we could do with youth workers in the park.
Good youth workers, other safe spaces.
Definitely.
Listening to what the children want in the park.
Yes.
What do you want in a park? What do you need? You know, and I think a lot of things that are put in the park are decided by adults.
Yeah. No, of course.
You know, so I think they have to have that buy-in.
Yeah.
But Fiona, thank you so much.
Not at all. It's been great. Thank you so much for inviting me.
I was really interested and love hearing the work you're doing at CYCJ.
Oh,
you know,
thank you. Good luck with the postgrad.
Well, I'm still there.
I know.
I'll get to the end.
A few months to go.
I know. I'll get there.
Well done. I know.
I'm so excited. So excited. You know, and I've learned a lot, even for a short space of time. You know, within a couple of months of looking at the legislation and the rights, I was able to go and inform other adults, and I've seen them now informing others. Yeah. So I've seen the ripple effect. So thank you so much.
Not at all. Thank you.
And I'm going to ask you.